Well, buenos dias, everybody. It is Monday morning. I don't know what God has going on because it's supposed to be almost spring, but winter said, I'm still here.
You answered my prayer.
I'm
I'm a
still
winter person.
I
Yeah.
here.
said just a little while longer. My plants are like, I think I'm supposed to be coming out right now, but I'm not sure. Very interesting times as we are in transition.
I'm all about the stars and the boots. Extended, Lord.
Come
Just a
on.
little bit more of our winter coats. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the I Win Morning Show. Super excited to be back with you guys. We are your amazing I Win Morning Show team. Dr. Danny, JT, the brand master, and myself, Professor JBA.
Boom.
Super excited to be back with you guys. So, let's get into it, guys. How was the weekend?
It was chill for me.
I should have come over there. It was busy for me.
What you do?
You know what? I work. That's what I did.
I thought we were going to break out in a dance after that. I was like, come on, Rihanna now.
If I had the energy, I would have, but I can't do it, Rihanna. JT, the inside of my mug matches your shirt.
Oh,
it does.
We blending.
You got to
I had to
blend.
put this on. Oh, well, my inside of mine too. I want my coffee to come out.
Yes. I think we should have a conversation in the coming weeks about what is in our mugs.
I can't say that out loud. Can't say that. Not on the I win. And I'm not winning.
You won't.
Mm-mm.
Well, I know I have water in my
Really?
I have water, yes. And thank you. This is water sponsored by the National Parents Union. It's awesome.
You're always gonna brand. You hear me?
Always.
I'm always on brand. I'm
He's
branding
gonna be
everything.
the checkout line at Walmart. Yep, I'm checking out with my wallet from the National Parents.
I am always doing a public service announcement literally everywhere. That's so funny.
I love it.
Man, I had an amazing weekend, guys. I'm just getting back from Charlotte from Profound Gentlemen's
How did
CIA
that go?
Community
Were y'all
Action.
profound?
Yes, we were very profound.
Okay.
Very profound. Definitely shout out to
What was
my
one of your
teammates.
takeaways?
It was good. It was really good. It brought
What was
together
one of your
male.
takeaways?
I was getting to that, brother.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you heard me or not.
I was saying that the team did an amazing job putting it together. It brought together male educators of color across the nation, and it was really good. I was honored to be on the opening panel
Nice.
for the event, and also I had cousins to present, so it was really it was a really dope time to be in a space where I'm not facilitating workshops and now seeing my younger cousins who are educators be in the space and doing their thing. So it was really super dope. I'm still branding because I have on my CIA sweatshirt, which is very hot. I actually forgot how hot this was when we were at the conference. So I'm like, ooh, with these lights on, I'm like, God, I need my fan. But shout out to Profound Gentlemen, the team. They did an amazing job. It will be in Atlanta next year. So I'm super excited about bringing the work closer to Atlanta. So yeah, that was my weekend.
You work too.
What was your takeaway? What did you?
My takeaway was that we need to keep advocating for more male educators of color to be in the space.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's good.
that was my
Come
takeaway.
to Atlanta. Don't call me because I'm not gonna answer.
Don't call
Jason
me.
gonna try to pull all of us in. They be like, "It's in Atlanta. What we doing? We here.
I'll be there. I want a
You can be
profound
there.
gentleman.
Come on, huh? Profound, Dr. Danny.
I'm profound gentlewoman.
Okay, and there is Profound Ladies. So
Okay.
yes, they are always looking for vendors who support educators in the space. So yes, it's gonna be super.
By
dope,
that
guys.
time, her cooking show would have been in action. So we
can't wait.
a live cooking show.
I like that. I like where you're going with this.
Look, we can't wait. But speaking of that, guys, I think we should get right into the morning affirmation. So if you're tuned in live to the I Win Morning Show, we're kicking off the week in an amazing way we getting y'all excited because the topic today is gonna be spicy. But Dr. Danny, before we even get into that, we have to bring the people the moment of affirmation. So we're gonna go right to Dr. Danny so she can bring us our affirmations for the day. If you're tuned in live on Facebook, YouTube, or whichever platform you may be watching, go ahead and share this with some other people. Dr. Danny, we're gonna pass the mic to you.
So I worked this weekend, everybody, but I'm never too busy to put together an affirmation. I am really inspired by people who are managers, but also people who are really good teammates. So whether you have a leadership role or you have a team role, you are still a leader. And this is the inspiration for the affirmation today, because even if you don't manage in a company, guess what? You manage yourself. All right. I manage one person. That's me. I am aiming for awareness, but not always being present. I am aiming for alignment, but not arguments. I am aiming for accountability, not accusations. I can only be responsible for me. That is the affirmation.
I know that's right. I can only be responsible for me. That is my takeaway. You can only be responsible for me. Reminds me of something I would hear my great-grandparents say. You can only control what you can control. Right. Which a lot of times is you. So I love it, Dr. Danny. Bring us on into that affirmation for the week. JT.
Yes.
Take us to Sunday school, brother.
Oh, I don't even show up anymore, so I can't take you, because then that means I have to be there. Mm-hmm.
You are the school.
Okay. No, I am the church. I'm not playing. No, we can't. I actually went to the Silver and Human Rights Museum again on Sunday, and it's always an eye-opening experience because I always see something different, and to just see the organization and strategy that was working behind the scenes to produce something that we all discuss and talk about. Some of the little things that stuck out to me this time that I want to share with you all is the unit of people that you need to put around you. Because when I think about the people that were connected, when I thought about the different organizations that they put together and how they worked in tandem, how people were supportive of each other, how they were able to identify one goal or 10 goals that they were going after, that was this sense of unity. But I know unity really works. Everybody is really understanding who they are themselves, and they're able to come together as one. And I really want to encourage everyone to really check your circle. Check the people that are around you. Check the people that are pouring into you. Check the people that are assisting you. If you have an idea and they see that your idea is going to be beneficial, are they trying to take over, or are they trying to support? Are they trying to say, hey, this is what I'm great at. Can this be of assistance to you? Or are they trying to make a way for you? Because I looked at the March on Washington. I don't know the backstory as deep as what we've seen, but I saw more unity than I probably would see now if a lot of preachers and, civic leaders got together. It didn't seem like everybody was trying to be in the front. They were just trying to do their part. But I know that comes with understanding who they are and being in that circle. And there was one thing that stuck out to me that I've always heard, and I read it again, was what Dr. Martin Luther King was getting ready to speak. The I Have a Dream portion was not on the notes, but Mahalia Jackson yelled out, "Tell them about the dream." And he heard her and started telling them about the dream. Well, some people are like, oh my God, that's dope. But here's what it also said to me. One, he had to have been vulnerable enough to even share that dream with her. She had to have some type of influence within him to feel like she can yell it out across the folks for him to hear it. And then he had to have enough trust in her to, when she said it, that he listened and went through with it. And now it's something that continuously is being said over and over that has changed the trajectory. And I really looked at their connection. And I'm like, I want those type of people in my life. And not only do I want those type of people, but I got to make sure that I'm doing my part by ensuring that they are open to come in, open to know who I am. So check your circle. Make sure you have solid people around you, and don't continue to keep living life feeling like you have to minimize yourself because you feel that the people around you are not strong enough to handle who you really are. Be you. And that's it. Come on with the claps. I can't.
I'm with them. I was like, you got to check that circle, man. That was,
you got to.
I love that. And I love the civil rights analogy. I felt like I wanted to be back in my classroom this morning and help the kids get it. You know, build your team. Building your team is a big thing, guys. It's a major thing.
Seeing the stuff and the strategy, and I think I was watching the clips, and I kept saying, could we do this today? Then I saw what their goals were, and I say, I don't think we could agree on 10 today. And I felt discouraged in a sense because I'm like, what happened? They did all of this. Where are we now? Where's this camaraderie? Where is this focus and this unity? And I'm not seeing enough of it. And it was just, try to go at least twice a year somewhere to just refocus my mind. But they didn't do all of that for what I'm seeing now. And I'm like, I could just see the preachers fighting. I'm going to say something. Well, put me on program. Well, I'm going to tell my people not to come. I can just see it happening, trying to be in the front instead of understanding that Jason has the voice. I may have influence, but he has the voice for this moment. Go, Jason, because if you do what you got to do, we all going to win instead of me trying to put myself in the front. I don't think we can do a lot of that today. I just don't. But
that's a good word, man. And that's a good connection to civil rights. It leads us into our big question, but I'm also thinking about recently some of the funerals that have happened, and just behind the scenes, how people have just really shown out about, I need to have a special seat at the funeral, and I need to be on program, and I need to be this. And I was just like, we're supposed to be honoring someone's life, and people are literally calling family members as they are around my parents' conference table about how they need to be on program and what are you doing to make sure that I'm being accommodated. And in my mind, I'm sitting up here like, can you imagine losing a loved one and then people are calling you about accommodations for them? God, you got to help the church, Lord. I mean, you got to help the world, please. But I'm just like, if this happening in the church, then I mean, just that. It's also the question of the role of women in all of this. So I know Dr. Danny is on. Shout out to women. This is Women's History Month. We had a beautiful conversation about 3 weeks ago, and it got really spicy because we were just talking about the powerful role that women. Now we're highlighting all women, right? But we just love celebrating Black women. Black and brown indigenous women, we just love that. And so looking at the power of women, and it was some challenging notions that came up, and there were some people that had a little pushback. So this morning, we are focusing on women in leadership and looking at the big question: why are we so fearful of women leading? And we're gonna really dive into challenging, can women lead the household? What if the woman is bringing in more of the income or money for the household? Jesus. Can women effectively lead churches without having a male board that is dominating or trying to control, dictate, tell them what to do?
You're walking on toes this morning.
Well, we gonna walk around. We gonna go ahead and walk around
heaven all day.
I'm very interested in this, and I'm gonna pass the mic to Dr. Danny because I had
She's bubbling. She's bubbling. Look at her.
She ready. She's like, I'm ready to talk about how awesome women are. And I love that because I had about 10 classmates who were very upset when I asked the question around, well, what are we raising our daughters to be? Are we raising our daughters to be less than, to be underneath a man, or I can't survive, or I can't make it, or I can't be a successful person, spouse, without having a man to make sure that I am in place? And a lot of brothers were challenged by that. Some of them had to go back and look at how they're raising their daughters, but also some of them had to look at how are they treating their wives in front of their kids? And it was real spicy. They didn't like that. So Dr. Danny, I'm passing the mic to you to start us off with our big question. Why are people so fearful of women leading, especially women of color leading in different spaces?
So, of course, I always challenge our questions with other questions. And I think the question really is, do you think that women are capable of leading? I think the capability part comes up for me instantly. This conversation is truly so exhausting for a woman who's just trying to do her job. But I do find that what I wonder is fear matched with people thinking we're incompetent, or is the incompetency reflected in the fear? And so I do struggle with that, because part of what I do wonder is fear of what we can do and outshine people, or is the fear that we don't have what it takes, and so we're going to have to call in reinforcement to help support us in leading. So that's the biggest struggle for me. I've never proven anyone in my circle that I know of that I am incapable. So I'm wondering if it is fear. And I do struggle with the fact that people are not being transparent enough to own what that is that they're truly feeling. I would be more curious to see an all men's group discussing the same topic to see what comes out of that conversation. Because if you ask them the question, what are you scared of in a woman leader? I'd be curious to know if somebody would say something, or if they would, what would come out of their mouths.
That's good. That is good. And I actually am very curious to see those same responses and are challenging people to have these conversations. That's one of the things that I took back to some of my classmates who felt challenged by my question around, well, what role are men playing in this? And, again, how are we raising our daughters? Are we raising our daughters to be, quiet? There was a lot of controversy around the state. Thank you, JT, for that that moment. How are we raising our daughters? Are we raising them to just, think that they have to be dependent? Like their strength is dependent upon a man? And not to say that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but what role are we playing in that? And how does that show up in these spaces? And I do think that more men need to be conscious-minded of these conversations. So, Dr. Danny, I thank you for starting us off in that way. JT, go ahead, Dr. Danny.
Oh no, because I was gonna say, sorry, JT. I was gonna say this. I was never raised in a household that didn't honor women in the household or leaders in general, women pastors. I don't know what that felt like. I didn't know what that felt like until I got into business. So it was really, truly an awakening, and didn't know where it came from, because I've always felt empowered. I've always felt empowered as a woman. I've always felt empowered as a woman of color. And so, when people question my authority, that's a lot. But I'm going to say this. While y'all men who are having a problem with women leaders want to fellowship and talk about the problem, we'll be doing 10 or 20 things. We'll get stuff done. So y'all have that conversation, because we're all about getting stuff done. We will lead. We'll lead your businesses while y'all are on a retreat discussing this. We'll lead the household while y'all are busy figuring out how to control us. So go ahead and have a conversation, because we're always leading.
I love it.
I love women that are listening. I need y'all to talk in these comments, because I know there are women listening, and I need y'all to rise up and let's have that conversation.
Yeah, I'm very curious about people's experiences, because one of the things that I love being able to do is to allow people to share their experiences and their stories, because I'm very cautious about all women are not the same. All women aren't going to be that stellar mother or that stellar example. All men are not going to be that positive father image, or everybody is not going to be that one or the other thing. And so I'm very cautious about conversations where it's all or nothing. So we are definitely celebrating women. It's Women's History Month. We still have a couple of days left in the month to highlight women. So women that are listening, we want to hear from you. But brothers, if you're tuned in, we want to hear from you as well on the controversy around women in leadership, and is there a fear factor around that?
It is. It very much so. I saw balance. The men cheered the women on, and the women did the same for the men.
That's good, Casey.
So, I'm gonna say this, and we're just gonna see if the fire gets ignited or the light behind me and my TV turns to red or orange. We're gonna see.
Let's see.
But one little nugget. It's funny to me that some men become Christian when it comes to women being submissive instead of being leading, to where they take this notion of it's the man that is the leader. From what scripture says, the man that should be doing this and the women should follow what the man is saying. It's just crazy how they take that Christian perspective, and it's like in everything else, you're not taking the Christian perspective, but you want to take this outlook on the reason that a woman should not be leading because it's not being shown in scripture. And yet when you look into scripture, it's so many scriptures that speak about how the women begin to change and fight and advocate and intercede on behalf of the nations, on behalf of the people, and how things changed. And I do know that there are specific scriptures that, speak about the household, where certain people take this notion that, the man is going to be the leader of the household. And I get it, totally understand it. Certain men want to be the leader. Some women say, hey, we want them to lead and we will follow, but here's how we're able to lead at the same token. Totally get it. But I think a lot of some of the push or that energy that men give off is from that Christian foundation of what they've been taught wrong, or they've had a specific outlook from what we've been preached to growing up, that women don't have a place. They've used scriptures like, the women should be quiet, when that literally was not what was being saying. Those women in that particular community were out of turn. They were out of place, and he was just speaking to them to get them back in place. But I think a lot of this ideology of women being more under and not leading is from what they pull biblically, and that's what they're using to combat that moment. I think we need to look at how we've been presenting that whole notion and understanding that, one, we are all equal. We are all part of it. And if we run into that moment, then we just have to lead it. Because here's the truth. If it really is that much of a seriousness, we would have so many fathers that are absent, that are not present, and the women have to step in and take both roles. And not saying that they are being a man, but they also now have to be provided. Because I'm a son who was raised by a single mother. Am I supposed to be looking at her any differently because she was leading, providing, counseling, covering, and I'm supposed to minimize that because a man wasn't leading? But when you're looking for the man to lead, the man is not there, then is God still covering her and blessing her because she's not having to lead a household, that the present person is there? Or was that any less of God being present? No, he was strong and even stronger. Look at who I am today because of that. So I really think it's men not being able to really be strong, because when you find a clear and confident man, they don't mind the woman being who she is. That's because good. It's nothing less that it should infuel them even more, because if you finna get ready to go 100, I'm gonna go 100. And I think scripture says if one can chase 1,000, two can chase. So whether it's men or women, let's make this change, this progression together. So I think that's why a lot of men, I think they try to use the Christian teachings and understanding, and some of it is out of context, but I think a lot of them use that to combat and put them in the place while a woman should sit under them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to take us in a different direction, but still on the same topic. I had a conversation this weekend at CIA with the older seasoned educator who actually follows me on social media. And he was intrigued about my tweet around the Atlanta Board of Education. This is the first time in history that there has been an all-female board. And I actually think that's pretty dope. It's also interesting because we're still predominantly Black and brown children in this system, and there are more white women on the board than Black women. And that is the direction of a tweet that I had put out regarding the lack of representation specifically for Black boys. Because when we look at decision makers, especially in education, around policy, around how we are policing Black and brown, not just children, but also teachers in public education, we have white women at the helm. And not to even say that that's bad. However, culturally, I am very intentional about realizing that there may be a breakdown in how we interpret things, how we deem things to be important, how we put things in perspective places. And so I want to pass the mic to Dr. Danny to talk about the battle that Black women face in these different spaces, having to work with other women who a lot of times also can bring some very controversial ideals to the table. I'm trying to also be politically correct too.
Oh, that's nice.
With this conversation, but I know Dr. Danny does affinity groups and conversations around this. So I would love for her to maybe just kind of speak to some of the racial challenges that Black women have to face in leading in spaces, and not just necessarily having to even combat against men, but also against fellow women.
Well, you know that whole theory of crabs in a barrel, right? Crabs in a barrel, where it's everybody is trying to come up, and then we're pulling each other down. I know a lot of times that reference is towards other women, and what we're all trying to do is to strive for greater. We're trying to be up top and be the lead, and then we're pulling each other down. So there's this fight and tug of war of power amongst other women, because there's normally only space for one woman to lead. You know, there are fewer spaces for a woman of color to lead. And so we're making sure we get that role. There's only a few open at a time. And so I think what we don't do is we don't talk about what are some of the conflicts that we have within our own group. So, you know, it's not even just Black women against white women and vice versa. It's Black women against Black women, because again, there's only space for one Black woman in in some of these places. And so we're always about trying to be that, and I don't want to say token, but trying to be that person, that lead. And when sometimes I've seen this, but sometimes you'll see a woman who is in a leadership role using that power and proving that she's not being, compassionate or showing favoritism towards other women, because she has to prove that she is a leader, a tough leader. And so there's a lot of pressure that's on that woman taking on that role, because she's trying to appease two groups. She's trying to show that she can break ground and be the woman leader, but then she's also trying to prove to men who doubt her leadership that she can be just as unbiased in a role, and she can lead like the man per se. And so there's an internal battle that goes on. It's who do you look out for? Well, again, going back to my affirmation, you have to look out for you. You have to look out for you, and you have to really be intentional on identifying what are your leadership qualities. It doesn't have to be gender-based. A leader is a leader is a leader. And so what are the qualities of a good leader? What are the skill sets of a leader? Those are non-gender based. At the end of the day, they're non-gender based. So think about those things too. And if you can close your eyes, not knowing what gender that leader is, wondering, did that leader do a good job? If you open your eyes and you see it's a woman or a man, the point is it a good leader? Period.
Listen.
We should do leadership like they do The Voice, where we hear how they're going to execute, lead, do the thing, and then we say, I want that leader, and turn around and be like, oh, it's you?
Yeah.
Yes, it's me.
That's another show coming
It's
soon,
me.
guys.
Absolutely.
That's another before somebody picks up that idea, that's another show that's coming. Dr. Danny, that was such a great point you brought up, because that was also a big question that we've had on the I Win Morning Show. So if you want to hear more about leadership and some of the things that we put into the atmosphere, go to the YouTube channel and check that out. Now I'm looking at the time, guys. So I'm nervous about this, because I want to ask this question. I'm just very curious about this.
Here you go.
Just curious about
this.
There
you go. Looking.
Growing up, especially in the church, connected to so many people who grew up in the church, God has always been referred to as He. God is male. The dominance of the presence of God is male. And I'm asking this question because of the point that Dr. Danny just made about leadership and just being able to see and hear that without gender. And so I'm asking this question in regards to what we're talking about with women leading. Is God non-binary or is God male?
He's
what do you guys think?
Because he's a spirit. So he's neither he or she. He's a spirit. He's all things. But I know in spaces, a lot of times, even in scripture, when they speak of he, that doesn't necessarily mean he in our vernacular. It literally means just a point of reference that can kind of be inclusive of all. Because I can truly say, one of my friends, I can't remember who this friend was, and if it comes to me, I'm going to reach out to them and we can have them on. But he, yes, okay, I know it is, yes. So he made this reference of, and it was a good point. We didn't go that deep, and I'm not going that deep with it. But he said he would not be ashamed to say that God is more of a female nature than male, because when you look at a lot of the actions and attributes of God, it's more of a female presentation than it is male. He was like, when you think about the connection to God from a male's perspective and from a woman's perspective, it's very more emotional. It's very more connected. It's very more that intuition. Because think about who's always running to the church, who's always in moaning and groanings, who's always in the place of birthing. When you think about how God has moved throughout this time and how he connects in the bosom of God and, and holding in and having these certain time frames, like it really does reflect more of attributes and actions of a woman than a male. And I can see that in that way. But he just brought in, he said, but think about a woman in church and men, that connection of giving life. We can't give life. She can give life. God can give life. We can't. And it's something about a mother and the child that they give life to, that connectivity, how they're open, how they're able to do anything for you. You look at that parallel between God and his son and what he's done and how he's covered and watched over. And you just think about when a woman gets to that connectivity with God, it's always more women in the church than there are men. It's just, it just is. But there is this connection. You cannot deny that when a woman prays, when a woman connects, when a woman gets in tune, it's a different type of connectivity. Like the intuition of women, I can't come back. You know what I'm saying? Like there were times where I was going home. I think I was driving somewhere, I think out of St. Louis or something, and my car stopped. Why is my mother up at 2 a.m. in the morning and knowing that I was getting ready to call that something was up with my car? Why are you up? Because I said something. Wait a minute. I'm nowhere close to that, but I think about more women in that space. So I'm saying that God is not neither male or female. He is spirit. But I can see the parallel of having that woman nature and that caretaking that God has shown throughout scripture and how we interact and see how a woman is, because women give life. we don't give life. You know what I'm saying? It's that connection. It was him that used the woman to give life that helped us bring this birth to the son. Like it's something else. Think about this. Who went to the rock? Who went to the stone when he died and he rose again? Joseph was not with Mary. It was Mary and another woman going to see where they laid. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so much about the woman, the connectivity. So I think we just don't put women in the place where they are because of how people have kind of talked that. And maybe they're nervous because of how they are connected. How you can't, you know what I'm saying, overlook because a woman can sense out certain things. And I think it's probably why a lot of women are fighting because they kind of can sense certain things about women as soon as they see them and be like, yo, girl, I know what's going on. I don't know. But
go ahead, Dr. Dan.
I was gonna say, you know what I like what you said as far as just that sixth sense, the intuition, that discernment that exists. I don't know what men feel. I've never heard a man say, I had a feeling in my spirit that you were doing something wrong. I've never heard that. So correct me if I'm wrong. But I know that I think one of the biggest fears is the accountability that women so masterfully make people feel like it's, you know, like your mama. If you talk about your mama, you're like, oh, she knows what I did, and she's going to hold me accountable for what I did, and she's going to ensure that I do it right. She's going to do it in a way that's in love and chastisement, you know? And so I think the biggest fear is, from what I gather from men, if you know you were wrong, if you know you have done wrong, there's nothing like a woman who will come to you in love and correct you or make sure you want to get right. And I think there's this internal reckoning that you have as a man where there's history of how you have done women wrong. There's history in where you have mistreated some people. There's history in the way that you thought about women. And so the fact that you might have a woman leader, you are worried more about the repercussions of that. You are more worried about, now I'm gonna really have to do it right because she is gonna hold me accountable like nobody else can. And I think that is the fear of what I'm going to have to do, you know, and showing myself to myself. There is nobody that can show a man to himself like a woman, whether she is telling him the errors of his ways or she is, you know, again, showing him how to do better, encouraging him to be better and to do better. She does it in love. And the way her approach is unlike any other. A woman is a genius in being a partner. She knows when to lead, how to partner, how to allow her husband or whoever to feel like he's leading, even though she's doing a lot of the work in the back and supporting him. With first ladies, we talked about first ladies yesterday at my church, and it was like the power of a first lady. And the power is she's not fighting for power. She's got the power. Anybody who really has the power doesn't have to fight for it. They got it. True. They own it, you know? And that is a God-given gift.
I love that. Yeah. My perspective is a little bit different. Even when I asked a question about God, because in teaching students and, you know, having a conversation with them, everyone's connection to God is different. So even thinking about different religions, God isn't referenced as man. God is just referenced as God. God is a spiritual being. God, in an American terminology, God is non-binary. And so over the years, especially the last 5 to 6 years, I have found myself referring to God as God and being intentional about making sure that when I reference God, I use God and not he. Because living in America, saying God as he means that it's the patriarchy, right? It's men are in control. That is a reality. That is a lot of the Christian history in America, that Christianity has been used. And I mean, Black Christians, I'm sorry, but I'm not, because Christianity has been and still is used to oppress us. As people of color, it's still used to oppress women, which is why we have these abortion rights bills, you know, flatlining all across the nation, because men want to control women. And to be more specific, a conservative right wing, white male wants to control women's bodies, wants to control Black people, brown people, indigenous people. So I'm very intentional about how I reference God. I also am very intrigued about one of the comments that Dr. Danny made in reference to JT. I feel like for my family, I am that person. I am the person that's up at 2 or 3 in the morning, which is even funnier because one of our female neighbors who is right behind us, she would be up in the mornings and I would be in the backyard walking around praying and speaking the names of my loved ones. That's my role. I don't think that it really has anything to do with gender because I know my power. I know and seeing my great grandparents, not just my grandmothers. We hear a lot about lilies because we hear about the foundation, but it was Poppy that taught me the power of prayer, and seeing him at the garage praying for neighbors that simply would just be driving by, very intentional about that. So I think that it could be men and women who have intuition. I think that a lot of men don't tap into their energy of meekness, of kindness, because we have feminized those things where you really shouldn't be kind. You've got to be hard all of the time. You have to be, you have to be this image of this is what a man is. And I think that sometimes we have to just be intentional about showing up. In one of the things that is very clear across religions, which are the fruits of the spirit. How am I showing up in my patience, in my kindness, in my love towards someone else? And so those are my thoughts around the question of God. And is God male? Is God female? What does that look like? How does it show up in our society? But those are some dope views. And I think it also speaks to the power that our women have, that they are utilizing every day. All right, y'all, it's 8:00. Go ahead, JT.
Yes, I didn't know that the school boards is all women's school board. That was
all female board.
All
female board. Yes, and it's very
and
controversial.
They were voted in, right?
All of them were voted in. One person was appointed by the board. So there has been a lot of controversy around that. They have been posting things for Women's History Month, and I have been very intentional about paying attention to people's comments and people's reactions. And so, I salute the board. It's very hard work to do that. But race does matter at the end of the day. And I know that people a lot of times like to escape that, but racism is an ism that just happens to be present a lot, especially here in these United States. And so it's been very interesting conversations around that. And also women leading school districts, superintendents, CEOs. I'm also looking at, and I know we're at 8:00, but I want to highlight this as well. We scrutinize women more. We slut shame women when men can walk around in gray sweatpants and have 50 kids, or that was a reference to Nick Cannon. And, they can do all of these things, and we almost kind of allow it. But then we stigmatize women for having sexual freedom and autonomy over their bodies. Dr. Danny mentioned first ladies, and I was like, oh my God, I was hoping that no one was going to show the video clip of the first lady who recently was going off in the pool.
You want me to find it?
And I know Anna Douglas has a good reenactment, and then she had to make another video as well regarding her thoughts around what has happened. And I think that I'm referencing that because it's time and space. I don't think her reaction was wrong. To be honest, I don't think it was wrong. It may not have been appropriate for the pulpit because that is a sacred space. But I don't feel like her response was wrong because I haven't been a first lady. I haven't been a woman in a relationship with a man who has power, who has prestige, or who has, clout in a sense. And then there are other people who are intentionally seeking after that person and also having to be in a relationship with the person that's fighting that level of temptation. I haven't been in that seat, so I can't tell somebody how to respond and how to react. I'm bringing this up because I saw how people
you can tell them where to respond.
Immediately were ready to tear this woman apart.
Yeah.
And they still are just destroying her. Like, oh, okay, well, she's the first lady. Now we need to make sure that the church is holding her accountable, and we need to do this, and we need to have and I'm like, wow, it's really deep. I look at Sierra and Beyonce and what they recently wore around the award season, and how people are like, oh, look at Sierra, she's supposed to be the Christian woman, and she's supposed to be the example, and Beyonce is supposed to be women empowerment, and they have these dresses that are see-through and showing their bodies, and what kind of wives and what kind of mothers are they? And I was like, wow, to be a Black woman with such power and confidence of who you are, and to be attacked by everyone and your own, has to be something.
Crabs in a barrel.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just am like, wow. And how do we get to a place where we can't even allow people to express themselves without judgment, and then placing ourselves in a position to judge and then again control people? That fear of women sexually, being free and wearing what they want to wear, or freely expressing how they feel and not just going along to get along. This really hurts me, and I'm tired of it happening. And so my response is going to be like, listen, I am from the Bronx. I'm from the streets of Atlanta. If you keep playing with me, I'm coming. But when women express themselves in that way, they're ostracized and they're confined. And so I wanted to just add that.
Yeah, but you know what though? I think of it differently. And as again a woman, I wonder when people put that attire on, what is the response they're striving for? Like, you wanted a reaction. You might not have gotten the reaction you wanted, but the point is you wanted a reaction, and you put yourself out there. And I think as a leader, own what you did. Like, I think for any leader, own the decision you made, own the fact that you put something on that people are going to have a problem with, and you know what the problem is. Because if you consider yourself a woman of God and you're walking around in this outfit, the point is, you know the controversy. You know that. So just own it. That's it. But I feel like us, like, out here defending the fact that, they should wear whatever they want to. You're right. But they also need to be held accountable for what they wore too. Now, if you're
why do they have to be held accountable? And that's a good point. Because in some of the interviews that have happened, it's only been American women who have this notion and this thought. And I find that so interesting, because women in America are like, oh, they shouldn't be wearing that, and they should know what's going to happen if they do X, Y, and Z. And also, race matters, because when people started showing the pictures of white women who are married, who have kids, who are leading nonprofits, no one had anything to say about the European look of these women wearing the same dresses by these designers. But the two Black women that did it are ostracized, and primarily by women and men in their own country, when these designers are international, and they're like, oh, this is a model's body, this is a physique, this is beautiful, this is art. But in America, these women are ostracized differently from their society. So I just find that to be very interesting, just
because there's always an
culturally as a country
thing of that Christian concept, that it's like we pick and choose that Christian way when we want to put it on display. Because I saw a couple other women that were dressed that way. Nobody went at it. What made Sierra the conversation? Because they had just posted a video of her and old boy praying over some people. So now she's a Christian woman. Wait, Christian women don't wear this. Well, where are we getting this knowledge? It is what we've been taught. It's what's been put out there. It's what's been, this is how you need to look. You're now with a Christian man, so this is the Christian woman. And it's the perception of what's being embedded into us, because there are always innuendos of this Christian nature and thought of what we feel from our past time. Because I just said, I went to the Civil Human Rights Museum. None of the women look like the women of this day and time when they went out, when they were getting arrested, when they were going, none of it. And I remember that they said they would always say they had so much respect and dignity in how they need to present themselves when they're going into the space where they were not wanted. Don't say anything. Watch how you carry yourself. And I get it. Back then, you needed to show yourself in a specific way to not create that combativeness. Okay, can we say we've overcame that to where now we have more liberty to do what we feel that we need to do, because we're not in that space anymore? But where do we begin to create this notion of this is what you should do? And this is what my argument is always, is we follow the cultural standards instead of, are there literal standards that we can follow that are written down that say you should not do this. This is not what we're going to do. And that's not going to happen, because when you think about Christians, there are so many different, we see it through churches. There are multiple churches that believe multiple things, and some of them in the same organization. There is not a standard. But if you look at the Jewish culture, baby, they have their ways. This is what you're going to do. When you look at the Muslims, they have their ways and what they're going to do. And I think we're so eclectic. We're so in this space of like this gumbo that we don't know where we are. And most of what people's response are, some of them that feel some type of way, is one, because they can't do that. Or they may be married and their husband won't allow that. Because when I saw it, and one of my homeboys was like, I can't believe she wore it. If I was a husband, and I'm like, well, let's hold on, because he's right there, like on her arm. What if he helped her pick it out? Because here's the truth. You can look at her all day and want her. She's going home with me. And guess what? I get to look at this. If that's what I know who I married. I know what's going on. So there's so many dynamics that are being put out there. And it's like this underlining establishment of Christianity. But I want to also use that to just revert real quick, was about the First Lady, in the sense of, as a woman, and she responded to this, as a woman, as a wife, I get it. But here's the thing. There's certain things that as I keep growing in God and growing up, that I do believe, if we're taking the stance of making sure that God's voice, God's presentation, the trusting of who he is, when we take a place that we use to speak his word in that place, let's make sure we're not blending it with our own personal feelings and what we feel is right. Let's try to, as much as we can, stick to what we know has been said to encourage. If that was something that you wanted to say as a wife, let's turn off the camera so that people won't misinterpret it. Let's let the people know you are now done with this message. We're done with this moment. And let me have a conversation with the ladies. Let me have a conversation with the church on how I'm feeling. Let's not put that out there, because the world cannot handle that. But at the same time, if we keep saying, this is the sacred desk, this is the pulpit, well, then let's make the pulpit all about God. Let's speak about him. Let's connect with him. And when we're ready to step into a place where I'm human again, I'm this again, let me step away from that. Because I don't think we take the space of God. And even when I have to preach places, I have to, not only do I write revelations and what I've learned from scripture, but I also have to look and say, okay, now how much is JT and how much is God? Well, let me take out JT. Because when you need something and now I'm there, you can't go off of what JT said. You got to go off what God said. So let me stick as close as I can to what God is saying and remove myself from it. A lot of what we're seeing with these preachers in the pulpit, they're not removing themselves. They want to put this, like they want to try to be on the same ticket with God. And I don't have enough to be on the same ticket with God. He's on the ticket alone. Be on it. I'm cool. I'm not even jealous of you being the only one. Let me step back. And I think that's where the problem came, because she said it. I am a wife. I am a woman. Totally agree with that. And most women that was in there, they agree with it. But the place that you said it, because that's just like Jill Biden getting up and decide she wants to go off because there was an old woman at the senior citizens home trying to rub on Biden. She has a moment where she can go off. Well, she is a wife, but she's also the first lady. When she gets into that space.
And that's knowing your role. That's knowing your leadership role.
And guess what? It is literally how
time and space.
Yeah.
Not a bad message, but maybe that should have been in Bible study where we're talking about what's going on. Women, listen, this is a reality. How can we do? It's all about your presentation and how you do it and how you bring it across. I also think too with Ciara and Beyonce specifically in the attire they wore. I'm going to say this: one, the attire they wore, A, at award ceremonies, B, at events where designers are presenting. It's an art.
Come on.
I want to go to the European commentary regarding this. They revered the women's body. It's a work of art. And I'm almost like, no, why are we missing that? They're not going to the Children's Museum. They're not going to church. They're not going to a business meeting. They're at an awards gala where women are wearing dresses by designers that specifically are creating art. I think sometimes we forget that fashion is fashion, but fashion is also art. Music is also art. Spoken word is also art. So putting these different pieces together and in perspective, well, why would they wear that? That's so inappropriate. Well, to be quite honest, if you're going to the Met Gala and it's a themed event and we're celebrating the work of art that may come through the form of your body, through your hair, then it is appropriate. And so it's also looking at it through that. It's very interesting. It's just that whole thing. I totally am on the same page with the First Lady. The Ciara and Beyonce controversy around what they've just recently had on at an event, it's interesting because globally how people are looking at it, and it's interesting how we're on different pages. So I love the conversation.
But Jason, what you just said is what others should be saying in advocating for that. The designers should be saying that. The people who are interviewing people on the red carpet should be saying that as a response to what they wore. All I'm saying is people wear stuff like that to get the reaction. If nobody said two things about those outfits, those people who design those outfits would not be recognized. So I think you have to understand the role too, right? Ciara and Beyonce have now been used as pawns. They've got the bodies that were perfect for these outfits. Now, so folks are talking about the outfits, right? But they have been used to use their bodies as the display for these outfits. But what you just said is what the designers should be saying when they have chosen those people to wear those outfits.
I think that is awesome. I also think too that a lot of the designers are not going to do that because they're creating works of art. And so artists are not going to explain their art. And I think that's the difference in the commentary from African journalists and European journalists and Asian journalists to what's happening in America, is that the American response is in judgment and others' responses are in art. And I think that we have to look at and challenge our notion as Americans as to why are we coming from the place of judgment.
See, you just said something. That's the difference. The American way was never founded on what we
the American Christian way.
And correct. That's why they're not going to, because what they created, one was never in that thought pattern of what we deem as our culture or a way of looking at it. When you go over to Africa, and I think I see how they connect and dance and worship, some of it is not as different than what we're seeing here, but in the American way, in the colonizers' professional setup of how you should carry yourself, how you should speak, how you should walk and be dainty. And this is what they've set up. And most of those things are still being controlled. So yeah, they're going to go in and go after it. But in the thing of what Dr. Danny is saying and what you're saying, I do feel for that to now begin to move. We have to speak up and advocate for, let's look at what's happening, what's being said, and let's speak in support. And this is why this is support. So we can start going after these quiet underlining methods that have been stated, that have been culturally appropriated, to where we're saying, wait, let's remove that. We're changing pronouns. We're changing methods of what is culturally right to say. Well, let's also do that for how we are advocating for ourselves, for our unit of people. Because here's the other thing. if somebody came to me about what you may have said about me, Jason, or that you may have presented or done for me, because I know who you are, I have to hold that first before I take what has came to my other ear and come to you and say something, and I have to hold that true. So what I've known and seen of Ciara, how about I hold enough of that first? Before I start going and attacking her, let me hold enough to say, if she chose to wear it, it must have been okay with her. And I know what I've seen when she's taking care of her family. I know what she's been through with the men that she's dated. I know what she and her husband have done and said. And I just saw her praying for other people. If she felt that it was okay, let me hold enough in what I've known of her before I go and attack her. And it's like, we don't hold on to people in support when things come out that we may not agree with. We don't hold what we've seen. We just go right into it. But let's start holding and advocating and defending until we see that it's no longer right. Then we can speak up and say something. We don't do that, because it was more of us that was going in, and I never thought of it being a problem, because what I also saw was her husband standing right there beside her, and it's an event situation, and it's an award show. I'm done. This is what they do. Jennifer Lopez did it, and it's just all groundbreaking. They have the date when she wore it and what she's done. Let's not always go at it. Let's hold for what we have known, and let's do more of that. But again, went to Silver Human Rights.
We have preached over
looking
over
at what
time.
they said and looking what we're doing. This is why I keep seeing us having to fight, because we can't find common grounds to support each other and really defend anymore. And we see it.
Listen, y'all, we could go on and on and on this topic. I love the conversation, but we are over overtime. Women can be all things.
Are we overtime?
Way over.
Let's celebrate women. Let's also, and I love what Dana said, it's okay to agree and not like certain things, but also to still be in a place of respect. And so that's why I love these conversations, because it brings together different perspectives. So with that being said, y'all, we've got to get out of here this morning. We love you. Stay connected to the I Win Morning Show. Coming back next week, we are still going to be celebrating women, but in a different way. So don't miss our big question for next week. Dr. Danny, shout out for you for just simply being you and letting us know that women can, will, and are doing all things they were designed to do. Love you for that. Love all of the comments today. I Win Morning Show next week. We love y'all.